Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وعلم آدم الأسماء كلها ثم عرضهم على الملائكة فقال أنبئوني بأسماء هؤلاء إن كنتم صادقين قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. It's good to see you guys. Wow. And wow. What's going on today, y'all? There's 10 and a half of you here today, Michelle. I'm sorry, Yusuf. I go by height. Welcome, though, regardless. So today I just want to jump in because I know for a fact I'm going to totally violate the whole discussion part at the end. So I just want to get started, inshallah. I really hope I'm going to be able to do today justice. I'm very excited about it. That doesn't mean I'm going to do a good job. So I'm going to try to be excited and do a good job, inshallah. So we'll see how that goes. Who was here last week? Show of hands. Jeez, you're the minority today. Okay, I want to do just a quick recap of where we kind of got to so far. We're doing the story of Adam. If you guys didn't get on the flyer, we're doing story of Adam alayhi salam. This is part 3 of what I'm hoping is just going to be 4. I'm hoping next session is going to be the last one. Then we move on to something else that I don't know what it is yet. But for now, we're sticking to this. This is in Surah Al-Baqarah. It's the first story in the book. Today, what I mostly want to do is a little bit of an overview from someone else's perspective that I want to go through, inshallah. Just a couple things, because I opened something up last time and didn't close it, and I feel guilty for that. But we talked last time about this scene of Allah teaching Adam things. You guys remember this, alayhi salam? We remember this? Okay. And I opened and what are these things? So in the beginning, Allah made an announcement, I'm going to make a Khalifa. I'm going to make a representative of myself on the earth. That's the announcement. The angels brought up not protest, but a question. What was the question they asked? What's the question? The 7 of you were here last week. Yes, why are you going to create something that's going to cause corruption and shed blood? وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. But we do tasbih of you, we declare your perfection. We're not asking this to question you, Ya Allah, we're just curious, we just want to know. Allah responded with, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, which will be a big theme for today. Allah's famous answer to the angels, I know what you don't know. Which seems like so far in the story, He's not going to answer it, but He does. But we haven't gotten into detail yet. Then Allah says, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, which we covered last time in more detail. And then Allah taught Adam the names, all of them. Then He presented them to the angels. So them, the word them is repeated twice, and we talked about this last time, just as a recap. The first them is exclusively a non-human them. Kullaha. I won't go into the Arabic of it. That exclusively is about non-humans, which means we covered the possibilities of this a little bit. If you guys remember, what did Allah teach him in this moment that we don't know how long this moment is? Number 1, language. We talked about this last time, yeah? Meaning the all language is actually inspired by who? By Allah. So the etymology, or like even the genealogy of language, if you want to call it that, Spanish, Russian, everything, Aramaic, Hebrew, Arabic, goes back to whatever language this was that was taught to him. So, and by the way, I covered this last time too, but just to cover this, when Allah teaches Adam alayhi salam something, He's intervening in like whatever natural being Adam is in right now alayhi salam. This is revelation that Allah is giving Adam. This scene of Allah teaching him stuff. Okay, so the first thing, what did Allah reveal to him? Language. The second thing that you can say, He taught him basically, when you study any subject from medicine to psychology to biology to engineering, everything is broken down to what we call asma, or nouns. So He taught him vocabulary. He taught him the names. Like basically, this is where you can say every field of knowledge, from psychology to biology to whatever ology you can think of, began in this moment. And we talked last time, I connected this to this idea that the Muslim mind does not split knowledge to secular and religious. This is a very colonial thing that was kind of brought onto us. We do not think of that. The Muslim mind should throw that in the garbage. That's not how we think. Every knowledge is Allah's knowledge. When you study psychology, for example, you're studying the internal mechanisms, creation of Allah. That's his knowledge that he gave starting with Adam alayhi salam. You do not say, for example, I'm a therapist now officially, alhamdulillah. I cannot, when I walk in the room as a therapist, put my Islam, you know how people say like I hang my religion at the door? No, I don't have to do that. I don't have that problem the way other people have that problem. I don't hang my Islam at the door like it's something I take off and on. I bring what I know about psychology, I bring what I know about Quran, I bring it in that room with that person. Believe it or not, it helps. You don't disconnect the two, because both are Allah's knowledge. Does that make sense? So it's just, we talked about that more last time, but it was bear repeating. The third one, you could argue he taught him his names, which we'll go more into depth. And the fourth one, the names of every human being. Asma, by the way, is names, and ism could also mean a description of something or attribute of something. So I gave you the hadith, I'm not going to repeat it today, but I shared with you guys the hadith where Adam alayhi salam was presented every single human being that will live from his direct children to the end of times. And who was, just as a pop quiz, who was the one that he saw? And everyone had a light, by the way, in between their eyes, the hadith says, and that is known to be the fitrah. Now, who was the one who had like a special light that Adam alayhi salam called out? Dawood alayhi salam. Remember, towards the end of times, which is scary because that was how many thousands of years ago now? But he said, he asked Allah, Ya Allah, this one's special, who is this? And he said this will be a special a special Khalifa towards the end of times. His name is Dawood alayhi salam. And Adam said, give him 40, I'm already saying the hadith, but give him 40 of my years. Remember this? We talked about this. And then I told you, it's a fun fact, but I love it. The word Khalifa is only repeated twice in the entire book. The word Khalifa, or representative, or manager. You could say as a Khalifa, someone that's left behind to represent the manager or the owner. Like in a business, for example, that word is only repeated twice. The first time was Adam, and the second time referring to Dawood. So now you have like the hadith and the Quran kind of coming together with the consistency, subhanallah. Now, what is this then? ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ. So he taught Adam all these things. He revealed to Adam all these things that might have been primitive at the time, but him passing on, there's a theory, for example, that every generation is a little bit smarter than the last, which makes sense because you're passing on your knowledge and they're still learning more, and then they're learning more and learning more, and that's how Allah allowed humans to technologically advance in all these different ways of thinking and fields of knowledge or whatever. But it started with this moment. Allah gave that seed to Adam alayhi salam, and all knowledge passed down from there. Does that make sense? ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Then he presented them to the angels. This them, presented them to the angels, is a human them. I will argue it may include both. Meaning Allah didn't just present the things in front of the angels, like tell me what these things are. Tell me this rock and tree and dog or whatever, tell me what these are. But He also presented the human beings themselves, meaning you and I were presented. ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ فَقَالَ أَنْبِئُونِي بِأَسْمَاءِ هَؤُلَاءِ. Inform me the descriptions and the names of these, if you're truthful, in kuntum sadiqeen. And the angel said, قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ, you are beyond that, you're so perfect. لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا. We don't have any knowledge at all except for what you taught us, meaning we have no idea what this is. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. You are the most knowledgeable, you're the most wise. قَالَ يَا آدَمُ أَنْبِئْهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. He told Adam, inform them of their names. فَلَمَّا أَنْبَأَهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. So Adam alayhi salam's going through all the names of the things Allah taught him, from all the fields of knowledge, the names of Allah, to every human being. So you and I are being presented, He's giving descriptions, like this is Asil, she's going to be super smart, she's going to be towards the end of times. This is Wissam, he's very outgoing, this is Shadi, he's a fool, all on and so forth, yeah? Until the end of times, he presented all these names. فَلَمَّا أَنْبَأَهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ قَالَ أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ. Didn't I tell you? Thank you so much, I appreciate it. You don't have to do that, thank you. Didn't I tell you that I know the unseens of the skies and the earth, and I know what you make clear, what you make known, and I know what you conceal. I don't want to go into detail that right now. I just want to give you that scene before I go into the real stuff today. Does that make sense so far? Okay, bismillah. Is someone... Oh, never mind, we're good. Okay. What I really want to present, I want to give you that snapshot of the story so far. So what do we know so far? Allah made the announcement. And then the angels had that question. What was that question again? Will you create someone that's going to cause corruption, shed blood? Allah said what? I know what you don't know. Then He taught Adam alayhi salam and gave him a bunch of knowledge. This is where knowledge of human beings is born. And then eventually he challenged the angels. You made such an assumption about these human beings that all they're going to do is spread corruption and shed blood. Tell me the names of these things. Meaning he's giving them, part of the answer here is, you made an assumption because of the free will that they have, the choice that they have, but look at their intellect. Look what they're capable of doing. Look at the knowledge that they're able to have that you're not able to have, which again, I want to go into in more detail a little bit. What I want to present to you today, I just wanted to give you that kind of like overview. There is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man named Jeffrey Lang, Professor Jeffrey Lang. May Allah be pleased with him. He's 70 years old right now. Back in 2002, he gave a lecture about, he's a convert, if you couldn't tell from the name potentially, but he's a convert, Professor Jeffrey Lang. He was born here, just like a, like white American guy, like he was born a Christian and raised in a Christian family and stuff like that. He actually had a huge moment, and his conversion started with this exact story. What I want to do is give you his story and how he understood this passage and what happened to him intellectually when he read this passage. And it did a lot for me, wallah, and I'm hoping that's going to do the same for you, inshallah. I'm hoping I don't butcher this. I'm really excited to share this with you. So a little bit of background on Jeffrey Lang. He told this story in 2002, and it was recorded then. It was posted on YouTube 2011. It's called The Purpose of Life by Jeffrey Lang. I highly recommend you listen to it. Like next time you drive to campus or to work, whatever. I'm going to tell you the story, but I cannot do it justice, mashallah. He's just an amazing thinker. He's actually a professor of mathematics, I believe somewhere in California. He brings an amazing perspective to this passage I really wanted to share with you. Background on him. So Jeffrey Lang, like I said before, was born in a Christian family. He became an atheist eventually in his life. So he started the story by talking about, so setting the scene about his life, he started his story talking about his mother. So his mother was an RN, she was a nurse. He describes her as like a wonderful woman, like the kindest soul he's ever met. She was religious, like she was like very close to her faith. When she died, he said her funeral was absolutely packed, which is a good sign of a person a lot of the time. But even Islamically, we say that, you can tell, not all the time, of course, but sometimes you can tell the goodness of a person by like his funeral or her funeral, that so many people are just rushing to be there to kind of honor their memory and to make dua for them and everything. He said her funeral was absolutely packed, and they were not famous people. She's just like, she's a nurse. Like she works like a normal job and stuff, but it was just so many people knew her from her job and from the church and from whatever. And he said, you have no idea how many people came up to me at her funeral saying, oh my God, your mother, like I remember when she did this for me. And someone was like, oh man, she did that for me. And she was the most gentle soul I ever knew. And she was the kindest person I've ever known. Or like I became religious because of her, and that kind of stuff. So she was like never rude. He never saw anything like her ever do any wrong, like that kind of person in his life, subhanAllah. And just generally like a great example of a religious person. That's what he called her. His father, on the other hand, was, the word he chose was difficult. He's like, my father was difficult. And that was a very kind word to choose. So his father he said, he didn't understand why necessarily, but his father was just always enraged all the time. Just always angry, always enraged. And he said that he had this tremendous rage and violence, which he tried to quell with drinking, which, if you don't know, typically doesn't help with rage and violence. So it made it kind of, you're literally adding alcohol to the fire, yeah? So it kind of like boils everything up. This rage, a lot of the time fell on the kids. So he was the youngest of 4 boys. And he's telling the story where he explained that like, I didn't mind getting hit, he said. I don't mind being beat. We collectively, him and the other 3 boys, he's like, we didn't really mind getting hit. It's like, he came at you and he's enraged, or he came back from a night of drinking or whatever. And you knew it, he's like, you knew when it was about to start. And you just kind of go in survival mode, and it's okay. Like you forget about it. It doesn't hurt you. It's physical hurt, but it's whatever. He's like, we were okay. He's like, where it really hurt us was what? When who got hit? His mom. When his mom got hit, I was really sad the way that he described this, wallah. But he's like, this was like my only source of warmth and protection. And it's like, if I lost this, I would lose everything. One thing that he said that broke my heart was, I was trading personal respect for personal safety, or at least he thought at the time. You know what he means by that? It's like he didn't stand up for her. He's a kid. I mean, nothing's expected of him anyway. So just to be clear, I don't know if he needs to hear that, but nothing's necessarily expected of him anyway. But as a child, like, he's growing up with this as far back as he remembers. When he heard his mother being beat downstairs, he didn't want to intervene because who would also get hit? Yeah, I would get hit. He would get hit too. So he's like, I traded my own respect, my self-respect for my safety. He's like, I was very hard to live with myself because of that choice I made. So hard upbringing, yes? Okay. He began daydreaming about his father just disappearing for obvious reasons. And he then also, because he's in a Christian household, his mother is like a religious lady, so he wants to kind of emulate that. He starts praying to God. And he starts praying to Allah, God, whatever his understanding of God was at the time, Jesus probably, alayhi salam. But he started praying like, God, just take him away. Like, we'll do so much better if you just take him away. I don't understand why you don't take him away. And he was super confused. Why does God not answer my dua, my prayer, that he's not taking away this guy? And also, it was super hard for him because he knows his mother to be this angelic lady. Like, why her? She does nothing wrong. She does nothing wrong, even to him. She does nothing wrong. She forgives him and she moves on and she goes to work and she smiles and she never misses a day and no one knows any evil of her. Like, God, why her? I get me, fine. Why her? And he kept praying and praying and praying, and he didn't go away. So what kind of further exacerbated this was he became a young man in the 60s and 70s, which was a really, really confusing time, especially for white Americans, actually, I would say, because they were living through Vietnam, which is people put Gaza, by the way, up with Vietnam in wars that America kind of proxied that were extremely wrong. Like, I'll tell you this. I think I can tell you this about Yaqub's dad. I think I could tell him. No? Don't tell him? All right, I won't tell you. We did a lot of things wrong in Vietnam as a country. A lot of illegal things. Maybe, okay, I won't say. Anyway. They lived through that, and we napalmed. I say we, like, America, right? Like, that's because we're Americans. So anyway, we napalmed kids in Vietnam. Like, there would be pictures of burning kids. We know what this is like, and this is not. No one's going, because we've been seeing on Twitter for the past year and a half, not to make it a joke, but we know what this is like. So he's living through like his version of Gaza, basically, of like, how could that's why, by the way, the young men and women in college at the time, they were intense like we are today, or like young people today, for Vietnam, the same way we are right now for Gaza. Anyway, they're going through all that. He went through the MLK assassination, Martin Luther King assassination. He's going through race riots. Basically, I tried to get a lot of his words word for word. He said, basically, the world was dominated by random, consuming, undiscriminating violence. That's all I knew the world to be. When I go outside, he said that he lived on streets where race riots would happen in his front yard, basically. And then when he's at home, not much else good is happening. He's getting beat. So he's getting beat mentally when he's outside, he's getting beat physically when he's inside. He's going back and forth between undiscriminating violence that he can't make sense of, that God isn't helping with. You see his perspective. So he pretty much became an atheist. He was actually in Catholic school at the time, and he said that he got in a lot of fights with the priest, which you find a lot, by the way, with like people kind of growing up in that kind of hardcore Catholic presence and going to Catholic school, is that some people that think for themselves, that are like in the Christian faith, and Muslims even sometimes, they'll argue with like the priest or whatever, and the priest at one point was like, I guess you don't believe then, because he just got sick of him. And then Jeffrey Lang was like, I guess I don't. So he's like this known atheist going to Catholic school. So that's just a kind of a snapshot of his background. You guys following so far? Interesting guy, right? He's giving a lecture to Muslims, like he's Muslim now, by the way, just so that, not to spoil the ending, but he's telling the story, and you feel for him, By the way, I will say, this is just like me talking. As soon as he said salam, I loved him. When I listened to this lecture once or twice, like 6 years ago. But when I listened to his lecture today again to kind of like review and take notes for you guys, which I forgot, I took notes before, I just redid my own work. But when he said Assalamu alaikum, I'm like, I just love you. I don't know what it is. And he wrote a lot of books and stuff about like Islam and God and stuff. It's just a beautiful soul, Allah, when you hear him talk now. Anyway, fast forward a few years, not a few years, he's 27, 28 years old, he said. And a friend of his gifted him a copy of the Quran. And he was a very avid reader. Again, he's like a math teacher, so he loves to kind of like, he's kind of the intellectual type. You could even tell like he was like speaking in math terms and like whatever when he's speaking in the lecture. He was teaching in San Francisco at the time. And he opened up the book and he didn't know who the author was, by the way. This is the funny part. The whole thing that I'm telling you, when he's going through this experience with Quran, he has no idea who the author is. He doesn't know who the author claims to be. Like obviously we know the author of Quran is who? Is Allah. He's reading, he talks about it like, oh, this author's really good. Like that's the way he talks it literally. You'll hear me say that multiple times because he said it after every verse. It's like, oh, the author is doing this. Oh, this author is very brilliant, whatever. He literally says the author is brilliant. Anyway, he's going through and he's reading. And like I said in the beginning, like here's me showing you where the story of Adam is, okay? Fatiha. Baqarah starts here. Page flip. Here's the story of Adam. It's very close to the beginning. It's like page 6, if you count the first 2 pages as full pages. You get the idea. He got to page 6. And page 6 is exclusively story of Adam alayhi salam. Now, of course, I told you before I jump into this, I told you that there's a huge difference, many major, there's a lot of overlap between like the true account in the Quran and then the biblical Judaic account also, the Old Testament account, because this is the first story of the Bible also, is in Genesis. Literally I believe the first book of the Old Testament, at least is Genesis, it starts with this story. And there's some overlap, of course, in these two stories, but there's a lot of things different, you guys, in these two stories. And the first day we talked about in part 1 of this series, I told you guys some pretty critical differences. So one of the first, for example, critical differences that I told you guys was, in the biblical account, why are human beings on earth? Who remembers? No, in the biblical account. Punishment. Actually, Muslims tend to not understand the difference between the Islamic and the biblical account. So if you ask a Muslim even, a lot of the times, why are human beings on earth? What happened to Adam alayhi salam? They'll say we're here as a punishment. We do not believe that. We don't believe that. That is, again, I'm sorry for those of you that were here, but there's a lot of extra people today. That is the biblical account. In the biblical account, guys, there's a lot of anger in the story. Like in the Christian mind, this is the sin. You understand? That even babies that are born are paying for this story. For Adam and Eve eating from the tree, even newborns are in sin because they ate from the tree. There's so much rage and anger. I'm going to read you Genesis in chapter 3. I'm going to read you an excerpt from it eventually. Just to show you the language even in their perspective of God's word, yeah? In our perspective, are we here as a punishment? The very first announcement, قَالَ إِنِّي جَعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I'm going to make a representative on the earth. So he's reading the story. I'm just going to tell you from his point of view, because he because he went to Catholic school, had the kind of Christian mind in the Christian perspective in his head. So while he's learning the story, he's like, that's not right. That's not what I know. So I'm going to go through verse by verse. So he came up to the story of mankind. He said he recognized some of the details, but there were some things the author got wrong. It's cute. It's very cute, this guy, Wallah. He's like, there's some things the author got wrong. He, in his mind, his words, not mine, he said, whoever the author is doesn't understand the story. That's what he said. No, this is his words. Astaghfirullah, of course, but this is his words. This is him at the time, of course. He's like, the details are like kind of aligning, but he's got the details off, whoever this guy is. Okay? Astaghfirullah. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm not going to keep saying, you get the idea of his perspective. Yeah, okay. He's like, I had to read it one or two, like he read just kind of straight up the first few pages. When he got here, he went, and he got to this page, and he went back, and then he got to the next page and went back 2 or 3 times, is what he said. He kept kind of going back and forth. And he said that the author here is trying to bring up some other entirely different point than the real true story, which in his mind, the real true story is what? In the Bible. Okay, I'm just going to go through the beginning. So he's reading through, and from the very first announcement in the story, I'm going to place a Khalifa on the earth. what I'm going to try to do is just kind of read the English. I'm going to avoid Arabic a little bit right now. I'm going to read, because even he tells a story that way, and I want to kind of honor the way that he tells his story. So I'm going to read the English account of it. I'm actually kind of glad it didn't work today. I'm going to read the English, kind of the translation, and give you the back and forth. He literally, it's as if like he was arguing with Quran, by the way, while he's reading. It's so cute. Like he's reading it, and he's like, what is this? What are you talking about? And kind of talking to it almost. So he starts from the beginning. When your Lord told the angels, I am putting a successor, a representative, a vicegerent, there's many words you'll find, but the Khalifa, I am putting a successor on the earth. Right away, he's like, no. That's not what the story is. This isn't supposed to be a positive role. We're not here to lead positive lives. Because when you're saying, I'm going to leave someone behind that's going to represent me, is that a punishment? No. Is there anger behind that? No. So he's like, that's not why we're here. So right away he's like, this author got something wrong. So he goes on, and the angels start talking now. قالوا, oh sorry, I said I wasn't going to do that. They said, are you really going to put someone on it, meaning the earth, that's going to spread corruption and cause bloodshed? He's like, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I love him. I just love this story, wallah. But he's like, that's exactly my question. He's like, supposedly the author's saying there's a positive role, but I agree with the angels, they're capable of extreme violence. Why create this fallible creation that can rebel against you when angels are so much better? Because even by what do the angels claim? One reading, I gave you 2 readings of this, yes? But the angels claim one reading of it is وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. Sorry, I'm doing it again. But we glorify, we praise you, we declare your perfection. We don't put any impurity on you whatsoever. We don't put any impurity on you. Why create them when you have us? And Jeffrey Lang is like, yes. Why make them? They are, and he's like, I'm seeing it. They are right. The angels in the story are right. And he's like, no less they're asking it in heaven. It's like, just make them in heaven, make them infallible, and you're good. There's no reason to cause the suffering. Because here, what's being brought up in his mind is the problem of suffering. Like, I know Vietnam. I know my own household, what I grew up in. I know my mother, how she had to suffer. I know all these different things. Like, why did I have to go through this? Okay? And then he got to the part of the ayah. Allah responded to them, I know what you don't know. And he's like, what do you mean? You're not going to tell me? What do you know that I don't know? He's like, what does this author know that I don't know? And why isn't he saying? And he's thinking right now it's a cop-out. He doesn't want to answer the question. Do you understand where his mind is right now? Okay. So we kept on going. And he taught Adam the names, all of them. Remember this part? Allah saying, and then Allah taught Adam the names of all things. And he pointed out here, one thing he said was, he's like, I remember Adam alayhi salam, I remember Adam in the Christian story naming things. I don't remember this intellectual part of him being able to learn. That was not highlighted in the Bible. So now there's a part that like, he's not familiar with. And he goes on, he talks about this a little bit, where when eventually Allah presents these names to the angels, Allah's pointing out, proving a point to the angels that look at the intellectual capacity of this creation that I have that you don't have. When the angels were presented these names and said, and Allah challenged them, give me the names of these things, the angels were like, we don't have knowledge except for what you give us. We have no idea what these things are. We have no idea the potential of these human beings. And Allah is pointing out the intellectual potential to them, actually. Like the most famous argument I can give you, for example, and he eventually got to this part as well, that the first ayah revealed is what? Iqra. Read. Read in the name of your master who created you, who taught he taught man what he doesn't know and taught him with the pen later on. So you have this intellectuality kind of being like that he wasn't used to in his version of the story. And he actually points out even that even Orientalists, you know what an Orientalist is, by the way? You guys should know this. In Orientalism, and you can Google this if you want, Orientalism basically is the study of proving Islam false. There was a huge push by mostly Germans. Actually, a lot. I learned when I was learning Arabic that 3 languages you need to learn if you want to be serious, or that you should consider learning if you want to be uber serious about studying Islam. Number 1, of course, is Arabic. Number 2 is German. Because a lot of Islamic studies happened by Orientalists, and they wrote their books in German. And number 3 is Urdu. But number 2 is German because of how much whatever. And even Orientalists, there's a quote by an Orientalist that he said, he never came upon a scripture that put so much emphasis on reasoning, like the Quran does. Which we'll talk about in a little bit. Anyway, so then he got to the part, tell me the names if you're truthful. And they replied, glory be to you, we have no knowledge except for what you gave us. You are the knowing and the wise. So meaning that what he's getting from the story is that what Allah taught Adam alayhi salam would take knowledge and an intellect, and it's beyond the angels. They don't have the same knowledge and intellect that he has. Tell me their names. Did I not tell you that I know the unseen and know what you reveal and what you conceal? So, like they have concerns, but they're not seeing their potential. Anyway, okay. You know what? Let me do this. Let's take a 5-minute break, and I'll give you till 9:15 actually, 9:15 inshallah. So we'll go enjoy the coffee and everything in the back. I'm hoping there's enough. There's a lot of you, Allah. I don't think we got enough. But enjoy the coffee. Come back at 9:15. We'll restart inshallah over here. Okay? So we'll continue with the story afterwards. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Okay. Where did we leave off? So he got to the part where Allah is teaching him names. Now, in the Christian account, this is not something. Come on, guys. We're getting back up. We're starting back up. So, in the Christian account, just to be clear, there is no reference of Allah teaching all these names. There's reference of Adam teaching stuff. So now in Jeffrey Lang's head, when he's understanding and reading this side of the story, or reading this part of the story, in his mind, this author, whoever he is now emphasizing the intellect of Adam alayhi salam and the potential through the knowledge of Adam alayhi salam. And when it was presented to the angels, it was kind of that same emphasis that he is capable of intellect that you are not capable of. And he said, that's a really interesting point this author is making. And then eventually there was the announcement that Allah commanded the angels to make sujood to Adam alayhi salam, yes? And in his words, you can kind of think of sujood in a couple of different, which we'll talk about that in detail maybe next time inshallah, but you can think of when you do prostration to someone, it could be out of respect, it could be actually out of servitude as well, like one is serving the other, you can say, yes? And he pointed out that even in Quran it shows angels do serve humanity. There is a lot of angels whose sole purpose is to serve humanity in different ways. So he pointed out what he got from this is the influences that the Quran is highlighting over the human being. That eventually we'll see there's a satanic influence and there's an angelic influence. So from his mind, the choice is being highlighted here. The choice is being highlighted. Okay. Now eventually Allah goes back to the story. Adam, live with your wife in this garden. Both of you eat freely as you wish. Do not go near this tree. Now in his mind, when he was reading this, he was so interested by this, I know what you don't know, and Allah taught Adam the name of all things, and the angels making prostration. He was so interested in this new version of events, and he was like, this is whatever, it kind of intrigued him. But when he got to this part, he was like, now the author is drifting back to the old account. Like he was getting somewhere, and then he sort of just kind of went back to the way that it's supposed to be told, and he's kind of losing it a little bit. That's in his perspective. One thing that's different, though, that he points out between the Christian account and the Islamic account with this tree. In the Christian account, there's some really, not out of disrespect, very different things about this tree. Number one, the tree was guarded by 2 huge angels with flame swords. Okay? There was high-tech security on this tree, is the point. It was said to be, God called it the tree of knowledge. So basically, if you ate from this tree, you'll have knowledge. This is the Christian account, of course. You'll have knowledge of good and evil, and God did not want that for Adam alayhi salam. Now, of course, that's different because we already highlighted there's choice here. So Allah gave Adam knowledge of good and evil. But in the Christian account, God did not want Adam to have knowledge, this kind of knowledge. So He forbade them from eating from this tree. And it's such a simple thing. Go wherever you want, just don't eat from this tree. No flaming swords, no wrath, no anger, no high-tech security. All he says is if you eat from it, you'll be of the wrong, you're going to be of the wrongdoers. Just don't eat from the tree. Okay? But Satan made them slip. Satan made them slip. When he read the word slip, he was like, slip? The greatest sin of humanity, and this author's calling it a slip? So he literally went to like an Arabic friend of his, and he showed him, and he's like, I want you to read this word for word and don't change anything. So we started, فَأَزَلَّهُمَا شَيْطَانٌ. So Satan made them, that word. What's that word? Satan made them slip. And he's like, slip? No rage? I want to actually read you just to kind of like, because this is where he's coming from. I want it to be kind of known. So when Adam a.s. in the Christian perspective, when he ate from the tree, actually, by the way, here's a question for you guys. Who ate from the tree first? All right, hold on. Because I feel like something will change when I looked at you weird. Raise your hand if Eve ate from the tree first.
Are we talking about the Quran or about the Bible?
The Quran. If Hawa ate from the tree first. Ah, good job. Very good. In the Christian account, she eats from it first. In the Christian account, the devil goes to not Adam, but Hawa. And Hawa convinces Adam to eat. Like she seduces him. So actually it's like a little bit that like she's kind of like, I don't want to say, but she's almost like has like a devilish inclination in the Christian account almost. Because she's also whispering to Adam, come eat from this tree. And goes to me from the tree. Anyway, I'll get to the woman side of like the Hawa side of things a little bit because it has an implication. But listen to this. This is in the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter. You guys ready for this? When Adam ate from the tree, the slip. Again, this is why slip was such an egregious word to use in his perspective, because there's so much rage in the story in Genesis in the Old Testament. So this is in somewhere in chapter 3 of Genesis in the Old Testament. To Adam, meaning God said to Adam, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you, meaning the earth is cursed. So literally in Christian doctrine, like this is a cursed, like right now we're in a cursed existence, is their, not ours. In their belief, we're living in a cursed existence because of the sin. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, meaning you will struggle for every bit of food that you have, till you return to the ground, for out of it you are taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. It's like this, you know, a similar vibe I can give you is how Allah reacted to Fir'aun in Quran. Where Fir'aun, like when he was drowning, he's like, I believe in the Lord of the children of Israel. And Allah says, Al-an? Now? Like how dare you? Like even al-an is actually al-an in the tajweed of it, that like you're whatever extending it, it's like extreme anger that's being raised. That's the anger here in the Christian perspective. So when he read the word slip, he's like, slip. And by the way, one other little thing, in the Christian's perspective, if it wasn't clear from this verse, Eve ate from the tree first. It was Eve's fault. And there's another verse I totally forgot to put into my notes, but basically humanity was cursed, but who was particularly cursed? Women. So God told Eve something to the effect of, in the Bible, something to the effect of, you shall now, because of what you did, you shall now be subservient to men, be subservient to the men, you shall feel the pains of childbirth, and you shall bleed because of what you've done. So now women are giving it, like humanity is cursed, but women are like super cursed, according to Christian doctrine, because who ate from the tree first? Eve. So she's extra blamed. I want to be very clear, in case any of you fell asleep and just woke up, and I don't blame you. That is Christian, not us. That's Christian doctrine. We do not believe that. I shared with you guys last time that when Allah created Hawa from the rib of Adam a.s. and He was fashioning her womb, He talked to the womb that He created, Allah, the first womb that He created, and He said, "Samaytuka bi nafsi." Samaytuka bi ismi, excuse me, min asma'i, basically, that I named you from one of my names, like the rahim. The mercy, literally, the womb in the Quran is called like or in Islamic literature, it's called the rahim, the mercy, like the thing of mercy. Just like Allah is ar-Rahman. It's like this extra honor given to women in the Islamic account that Jeffrey Lang, when he's reading, he's like, where is the anger against a woman? Where is it? It's supposed to be right here. And by the way, they both ate. فَأَزَلَّهُمَا. He made both of them slip. Meaning both of them they both bore responsibility. It's another huge difference, by the way. I want to point out that I can imagine like an atheist, for example, if they're, of course they're probably not watching, but if an atheist were to be here and listening, it's like, who cares? It's your fake story versus your fake story. It 100% matters though. Because one now has this like embedded